The sun rose mercilessly that morning in Heartland Springs, painting the sky with a blue so intense it almost hurt the eyes. Emily Miller woke up even before the rooster crowed, as she did every day. At 11 years old, she carried a maturity that many adults in the small town had yet to achieve. From the window of her small bedroom with peeling walls, she observed the horizon where the dry plains stretched as far as the eye could see. "Emily! Breakfast is on the table, girl! Sarah's voice echoed through the simple house. The girl adjusted her curly hair in an improvised ponytail and ran to the kitchen. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the aroma of homemade cheese biscuits that her mother prepared on special occasions filled her nostrils. "Is it market day, Mum?" asked Emily, her eyes gleaming with expectation. Sarah smiled discreetly while serving a little coffee with milk in her daughter's faded cup. "Yes, my child, but you know how it is, right? We have to go just to look at things. Money's tight this month." Emily nodded understandingly. She knew that story well. In fact, she couldn't remember a month when money wasn't tight. Even so, her heart beat faster when she thought about the market. It was like a festival for her eyes, a world of possibilities. That opened once a week in that little town forgotten by time. "Can I take the coins I saved, Mum?" she asked while biting into a piece of the still-warm cheese biscuit. Sarah furrowed her brow. "What coins, Emily? Weren't you saving for a new notebook?" The girl lowered her eyes to her plate. "It's just, I have a feeling, Mum. You know, when you feel like something important is going to happen." Sarah sighed. She knew well that sensitivity of her daughter, that different way of seeing the world that made her so special. Sometimes she thought Emily had been born in the wrong place, that this harsh land would never be enough for such a sensitive soul. "All right, Emily, take your savings, but don't spend it on nonsense, you hear?" The path to the market was long and dusty. The high sun punished them mercilessly, but even that didn't diminish Emily's enthusiasm. On the contrary, she seemed to float over the dry earth, her small feet barely touching the ground as she skipped alongside her mother. The market was already bustling when they arrived. Colorful stalls spread across the central square. Vendors announced their products in loud voices, and the aroma of spices and traditional foods hung in the hot air. Emily felt intoxicated by all that life. "Don't wander too far, Emily," Sarah warned, as she headed to the vegetable stand where she always shopped. The girl nodded, but her eyes were already wandering curiously among the stalls. That's when she heard a harsh voice coming from a more secluded corner of the market. "Last dog, almost free. Take this useless mutt that's just taking up space." Something in that voice made Emily feel a chill. Without thinking twice, she headed to the spot where the call came from. What she saw next made her heart tighten in a way she had never felt before. In an improvised cage, a skinny dog with dull fur and sad eyes stared at nothing, as if it had already given up hoping for something better. Around it, people passed by indifferently, as if it were invisible. The vendor, a middle-aged man with a hard look and calloused hands, noticed the girl's interest. "Interested, are you? This one's no good for anything anymore. Was abandoned by its owner. They say it doesn't even have a name," he said with disdain. Emily moved closer, her eyes fixed on the dogs. For an instant, something inexplicable happened. The animal raised. Its gaze and their eyes met. In that moment, Emily knew with the certainty that only children can have, that this encounter was not by chance. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. "How much?" asked Emily, her voice almost a whisper without taking her eyes off the dog. The vendor let out a dry laugh. "For you, little girl, $10, but I'm throwing money away. This animal won't last a week." Emily felt the coins weigh in the pocket of her dress. It was exactly $10 that she had collected over months, doing small jobs around the neighborhood. The money that would have been for her new school notebook, for the colored pencils she had dreamed of having for so long. "I'll take him," she said with a determination that surprised even herself. The vendor's eyes widened, clearly not expecting anyone to actually buy the animal. He took the money from Emily's small hands and opened the cage. "He's all yours, but don't say I didn't warn you." Emily knelt down, extending her hand to the dog. He hesitated, shrinking even further into the corner of the cage. "Come on, don't." "Be afraid," she whispered. "I won't hurt you." Slowly the animal approached, sniffing the extended hand. When it finally allowed Emily to touch it, she felt a shiver run down her spine. It was as if she were touching not just a debilitated body, but a wounded soul, as wounded as the dry land of Heartland. Carefully, she picked him up in her arms. He was so light, so fragile. She could feel every little bone beneath the lusterless fur. The dog rested its head on her shoulder, as if it could finally rest. "I'll call you Buddy," whispered Emily in his ear. "You're not alone anymore." When Sarah saw her daughter returning with the dog in her arms, her face transformed into a mask of astonishment and concern. "Emily, what is that? What have you done?" "I bought him, Mum," replied the girl, clutching Buddy to her chest, as if fearing someone might try to take the animal from her. "He was going to be left there all alone. Nobody wanted him. I couldn't leave." "Emily, be sensible. We barely have enough to eat. How are we going to feed a dog? And look at the state he's in. This animal is very sick." Some people around began to pay attention to the discussion. Among them was Mr. Thompson, the town pharmacist, an elderly man with a kind look who had known Sarah since she was a child. "What's happening, Sarah?" he asked, approaching. "This girl bought this half-dead dog," Sarah replied, with a mixture of irritation and despair in her voice. "Who ever heard of such a thing?" Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses and looked carefully at the animal in Emily's arms. His eyes, accustomed to identifying ailments, immediately noticed the seriousness of the situation. "This dog needs urgent care," he said seriously. "It's very malnourished and probably has an infection." "See, Emily, this dog will need medicine. Special food, things we can't afford," argued Sarah. Emily felt tears burning in her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall. She raised her chin in a gesture that mixed stubbornness and determination. "I'll take care of him, Mum. I'll work more. I'll do whatever it takes. But I can't abandon him. He needs me." Mr. Thompson was watching the scene with growing interest. There was something in the conviction of that girl that touched him deeply. "You know, Sarah," he said, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder, "sometimes it's the neediest animals that become the most loyal. This dog may seem like a burden now, but who knows what the future holds?" Sarah sighed deeply. She knew that look of her daughter's well. It was the same look she herself had when she met Emily's father years ago. A look that said that, against all logic and good sense, her heart had already made an irrevocable decision. "All right, Emily, you can keep him, but the responsibility is all yours. Understand? If this dog—" Sarah hesitated, not wanting to say what everyone was thinking. "If he doesn't get better, you'll have to accept it." Emily's face lit up with a smile so radiant that for a moment it seemed to outshine even the relentless sun of Heartland. "Thank you, Mom. You won't regret it, I promise." Before they moved away, Mr. Thompson pulled Sarah aside, out of earshot of Emily. "I'll help with some basic medications," he said in a low voice. "It's not much, but it might give the little guy a chance." "You don't have to, Thompson. You already do a lot for us when you delay payment for my blood pressure medicine." "I'm doing this for your daughter, Sarah. She has a rare heart in these difficult times. People like that deserve a little more faith." On the way back home, Emily went ahead talking softly to Buddy, telling him about his new home, about how she would take care of him, about the plans she had for the two of them. Sarah followed behind, torn between concern about one more mouth to feed and admiration for her daughter's compassion. What neither of them noticed was the gaze following them from the market. A gaze loaded with interest and something more, something indefinable and disturbing. Wade, Buddy's former owner, watched the scene from a distance, biting a toothpick with enough force to crack it. Buddy's first night in Emily's house was a test of patience and love. Sarah improvised a little bed with old towels in the corner of the living room, but the dog seemed suspicious, as if fearing that any comfort might disappear at any moment. "He doesn't want to eat anything, Mom," lamented Emily, offering for the third time a plate with rice and a bit of shredded meat, what they themselves would have for dinner that night. "That's normal, sweetie. He's scared, in a new place. Give it time." Emily sat on the floor next to the animal, gently stroking his head. Buddy looked at her with eyes that seemed to thank her, but he still didn't have the strength to show any reaction beyond that look. "He's going to get better, isn't he, Mom?" asked the girl, her voice choked by the fear of hearing the answer. Sarah approached and knelt beside her daughter. As much as she wanted to protect Emily from pain, she knew that lying wouldn't help. "I don't know, my child. He's very weak, but we'll do what we can, okay?" That night, even after Sarah told her to go to bed, Emily stayed by Buddy's side. She told him stories in a low voice. Stories she made up about a magical land where rivers never dried up and animals never suffered. Eventually, she fell asleep right there on the floor with her hand on the fragile body of the dog. It was Sarah who found her like that hours later and carried her to bed, not without first looking long at the dog and whispering, "Come on, critter. React. That girl doesn't deserve another sadness." The following days brought small progress. With the help of the medicines donated by Mr. Thompson, Buddy's fever began to subside. Emily managed to get him to drink a little water and even lick a bit of diluted powdered milk, a luxury reserved only for important visitors in Sarah's house. News about the girl who had bought the dying dog spread quickly through the small town. Opinions were divided. Some thought it was foolishness, a waste of money and energy. Others admired the gesture, seeing in it a lesson of compassion. Among the most skeptical was Mrs. Peterson, the local school teacher where Emily studied. Known for her rigidity and pragmatism, she didn't miss the opportunity to use the case as an example during a class. "See, children, how sometimes we spend our resources on things that don't bring returns," she said, looking directly at Emily. "In Heartland, we need to be practical. Sentimentality doesn't fill stomachs or build futures." The words hit Emily like stones. Her classmates laughed, some pointing at her. The girl lowered her head, feeling her face burn with shame. But something inside her refused to accept that judgment. At the end of class, while everyone was leaving, Emily gathered courage and approached the teacher's desk. "Mrs. Peterson," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "do you really think it's wrong to help someone who's suffering?" The teacher looked up from the papers she was organizing, surprised by the boldness of the question. "It's not a question of right or wrong, Emily. It's a question of priorities. What's the use of saving a dog if you yourself barely have anything to eat?" Emily took a deep breath before responding. "I think we save ourselves when we save others, Mrs. Peterson. My mum always says that we're only truly human when we can look beyond our own hunger." For an instant, Mrs. Peterson's severe expression faltered. There was something in the simplicity of that answer that completely disarmed her. "Go home, Emily," she finally said in a softer tone, "and I hope your dog gets better." When Emily arrived home that day, she found Buddy sitting, looking at the door as if he had been waiting for her. It was the first time she had seen him take this posture. His eyes, once so dull, now had a faint gleam of recognition. Mom, come see Buddy," she shouted, immediately forgetting all the humiliations of the day. Sarah came from the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. Seeing the dog, she couldn't hold back a small smile. "Well, look at that," she commented. "Looks like he really is getting better." Emily knelt down, opening her arms. To her surprise and joy, Buddy stood up, wobbling on weak legs, and took 2 steps toward her before falling, exhausted by the effort. Tears of happiness ran down Emily's face as she gently hugged him. "You're going to make it, Buddy. I know you will." What Emily didn't know was that across the street, observing the scene through the half-open window, was Wade. His face, marked by scars and time, displayed an indecipherable expression. For days he had been watching the dog's progress, driven by an interest that went beyond simple curiosity. "That dog is worth more than that foolish girl thinks," he muttered to himself, slowly moving away from the window. Much more. Buddy's recovery continued to surprise everyone. In the weeks that followed, the dog gained weight, his coat began to acquire a healthy shine, and his eyes now reflected a joy that seemed impossible on that first day at the market. Emily dedicated every free minute to caring for the animal, who repaid her with limitless devotion. Every morning before going to school, she woke up earlier to feed him and brush him with an old brush that Sarah used for her plants. Every afternoon when she returned, she spent hours playing with him in the small yard of the house, teaching him simple tricks and observing, amazed, his intelligence. "That dog seems like a person, Sarah," Mr. Thompson commented one afternoon when he stopped by to see how the patient was doing. "I've never seen an animal understand things so quickly." Sarah, who had reluctantly become fond of Buddy, agreed with a nod. "It's true. Sometimes I have the impression that he understands every word we say." Buddy's transformation didn't go unnoticed in the town. Many of those who had previously criticized Emily's decision now marveled at the result. Some neighborhood children began to appear to play with the dog, who showed himself to be gentle and patient with everyone. "You should take Buddy to the competition," suggested Caleb, a boy of Emily's age, while petting the dog. "What competition?" she asked, intrigued. "The dog competition at the Harvest Festival. My dad said that this year they're going to give a cash prize to the most beautiful dog that does the most tricks." The idea lit up Emily's eyes. A cash prize would be perfect to help with household expenses, especially now that the drought was intensifying and Sarah's work as a laundress was diminishing. Besides, it would be a way to show everyone how special Buddy was. "Do you think we have a chance?" she asked Caleb, while watching Buddy run after an improvised ball made of old socks. "Of course, just look at how smart he is, and his story is amazing. Everyone will be rooting for you." Excited by the possibility, Emily began to train Buddy more diligently. She taught him to offer his paw, to lie down, to roll over, to pretend to be sick, and even to fetch specific objects by name. The dog learned with impressive speed, as if he were eager to show his gratitude. On a Sunday morning, while Emily was training with Buddy in the small square in front of the main church, a group of people gathered to watch. Among them, discreet and silent, was Wade. When the dog perfectly executed a complex sequence of commands, drawing applause from those present, Wade approached. His face, normally closed, displayed a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Beautiful dog you have there, girl," he said, in a voice that made Emily feel an inexplicable chill. "Thank you, sir," she replied, instinctively pulling Buddy closer to herself. "You know, he reminds me a lot of a dog I had disappeared a few months ago. He was special too, knew how to do tricks that nobody would believe." Emily felt her heart accelerate. There was something in the way that man looked at Buddy that deeply disturbed her. "I bought mine at the market almost 2 months ago," she said, trying to keep her voice firm. Wade laughed, a harsh sound without joy. "Yeah, I know, he was almost lifeless, wasn't he? And look at him now, seems like a different animal." The man stooped down, extending his hand to Buddy, who backed away, showing his teeth in a low growl. That reaction surprised Emily. Buddy was normally friendly with everyone. "He doesn't like strangers," she lied, pulling the dog away. "Strangers? I'm no stranger to him, girl," retorted Wade with a dangerous gleam in his eyes. "This dog grew up on my farm. His name is Brutus, not this people name you gave him." Emily felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "You must be mistaken." "No, I'm not. I recognize my own dog. Just because he's fatter and has nice fur doesn't mean he's become another. And you know what? I want him back." The people around began to pay attention to the conversation, forming a small circle. "But I bought him," protested Emily, feeling tears in her eyes. "I paid $10. "And I lost a dog that's worth much more than that," retorted Wade, his voice now louder. "This dog has a special gift, girl. That's why he's so intelligent. He's descended from a rare lineage. Do you think any old mutt learns tricks so quickly?" Emily didn't know what to answer. She looked around seeking help and saw Mr. Thompson among the spectators. The pharmacist stepped forward, placing himself between her and Wade. "What's happening here, Emily?" he asked, his calm voice contrasting with the agitation of the moment. "This man is saying that Buddy is his, that his name is Brutus, and that he wants him back," explained the girl with a trembling voice. Mr. Thompson stared at Wade with narrowed eyes. "Is that true, Wade? Because if it is, I have to ask, why did you sell the dog in that deplorable state at the market?" "I didn't sell anything. The animal ran away. Somebody must have caught him and sold him," replied Wade, averting his gaze. "Strange. Because I heard that you yourself had abandoned the dog because he was no longer good for hunting, that he was too old and too weak. The crowd began to murmur. Wade felt the discomfort grow, but didn't back down. "It doesn't matter what you heard, old man. The dog is mine and I want him back." Mr. Thompson placed his hand on Emily's shoulder in a protective gesture. "If you're so sure, Wade, you can prove it in court. Until then, the dog stays with the one who cared for him, who saved his life." Wade looked around, realizing that public opinion was against him. He backed up a step, but before moving away, he pointed a finger at Emily. "This isn't over, girl. This dog is going back where he belongs. You'll see." As Wade moved away, Emily knelt down, hugging Buddy tightly, as if fearing he might disappear at any moment. "Don't worry, Emily," said Mr. Thompson, kneeling beside her. "He's just bluffing. He has no way to prove anything." But deep in her heart, Emily knew that threat was just the beginning of something bigger. Wade's shadow had been cast over her happiness, and she knew with that intuition that children sometimes possess that difficult days were ahead. The Harvest Festival was the most anticipated event of the year in Heartland Springs. For 3 days, the small town forgot the hardships of rural life and surrendered to the celebrations. Colorful stalls took over the central square. Musicians from all over the region enlivened the nights, and competitions of all kinds brought together participants of all ages. Less than a week before the festival, Wade's threat still weighed on Emily's heart, but she tried not to show it. She continued training Buddy daily, now with an even stronger purpose, to show everyone that he was, without a shadow of doubt, her dog. "Do you think we should really participate, Mom?" asked Emily while they were having dinner on the night before the beginning of the festival. "What if Wade shows up again?" Sarah, who was more worried than she let on, put her spoon down beside her plate. "Look, my child, there are times in life when we have to face fear head-on. We can't let a man like Wade intimidate us. If you and Buddy want to participate in this competition, you will, and I'll be there to support you." Emily smiled, feeling more confident. Beside her, Buddy was peacefully eating his dog food, a luxury that Sarah had managed to buy after saving for weeks. The dog, as if understanding the conversation, raised his head and licked the girl's hand in a gesture of affection. "We're going to win, Buddy, you'll see," whispered Emily, caressing his ears. The first day of the festival dawned sunny and vibrant. The entire town seemed to have dressed in its best clothes. Colorful pennants decorated the streets, the smell of typical food hung in the air, and an atmosphere of contagious joy spread to every corner. The dog competition was scheduled for the second day, giving Emily time to walk around the festival, admire the attractions, and try to momentarily forget her worries. Sarah had sewn a sky blue bandana, especially for Buddy to wear during the competition, and the dog proudly displayed it as he walked alongside his young owner through the decorated streets. "Emily!" called a familiar voice. It was Caleb, accompanied by other schoolmates. "We came to wish good luck to both of you." The friends surrounded Buddy, petting him and praising his healthy appearance. The dog, sociable as always, received all the attention with tail wagging and affectionate licks. "I heard there are at least 10 dogs entered in the competition," commented Brianna, one of the girls, "including Duke, that German shepherd belonging to Colonel Murphy." Emily felt a tightness in her stomach. Colonel Murphy was the richest man in the region, owner of vast lands and a breeder of prize-winning animals. His dog Duke was a pedigree animal, trained by professionals. "It doesn't matter," said Caleb, noticing his friend's concern. "None of them has Buddy's story, and that counts for a lot." The rest of the day passed quickly between games, traditional foods, and musical performances. At night, lying in her bed, Emily couldn't sleep. Besides the anxiety about the competition, she couldn't help thinking if Wade would appear and what she would do if that happened. "I won't let anyone take you, Buddy," she whispered to the dog, who was sleeping curled up at the foot of her bed. "I promise." The day of the competition dawned with a cloudless sky, promising intense heat. Emily woke up at the first ray of sunlight, her stomach churning with nervousness. She ate only a little of the cornbread that Sarah prepared, but made sure that Buddy was well fed and hydrated. "Ready for the big day?" she asked, adjusting the blue bandana around the dog's neck. Buddy barked once, as if responding affirmatively. His eyes, once so dull and sad, now shone with contagious vivacity. When they arrived at the central square, where a wooden enclosure had been specially set up for the competition, Emily was impressed by the number of people gathering around. It seemed that the whole town was there, eager to see the dogs in action. At an improvised table, Mrs. Johnson, the mayor's wife and organizer of the event, was receiving the entries. Seeing Emily approach with Buddy, her eyes softened. "Ah, you must be the girl with the rescued dog. Everyone is talking about you," she said, noting their names in a worn notebook. "You'll be the third to perform." Emily looked around, instinctively searching for Wade, but didn't see him anywhere. This, instead of reassuring her, made her even more nervous. It was as if a storm was slowly approaching, invisible until it was too late. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. The competition began promptly at noon, when the sun was directly overhead and the heat was intensifying. A small platform had been set up for the 3 judges: the mayor, Mr. Anderson, owner of the only farm supply store in town, and Mrs. Johnson. The crowd pressed around the enclosure, commenting animatedly about each participant. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the mayor through a rusty megaphone, "welcome to the great canine competition of the Harvest Festival. We'll have 3 categories today: obedience, agility, and presentation. The dog that obtains the highest total score will be the winner." The first to perform was a golden-coated Labrador, belonging to the son of the town dentist. The dog was clearly well-trained and executed basic commands with precision. The audience applauded enthusiastically, and the judges awarded high scores. Next came Duke, Colonel Murphy's imposing German shepherd. His entrance was received with murmurs of admiration. The animal was magnificent, with shining coat and proud bearing. He executed a complex sequence of commands that included jumping over obstacles, finding hidden objects, and even pretending to be injured when the colonel simulated a shot with his fingers. 10 points for Duke," announced the mayor, visibly impressed. An impeccable performance. Emily's heart was racing when they called her name. She felt Sarah squeeze her shoulder in a gesture of encouragement. "Go on, sweetie. Show them what you two can do." Emily entered the enclosure with Buddy, who trotted confidently by her side. There were some gasps of surprise from the audience. Many still remembered the skeletal and sick dog from the market, and the transformation was truly impressive. "This is Buddy," announced Emily, her voice echoing timidly through the venue. He's special." Some scattered giggles were heard in the crowd. Next to the imposing Duke, Buddy indeed seemed like a common mutt, despite his admirable recovery. Colonel Murphy, in particular, didn't hide a smile of disdain. Emily took a deep breath, trying to control her nervousness. She started with simple commands: sit, lie down, give paw, which Buddy executed perfectly. As she progressed to more complex tricks, the expression of the audience changed from skepticism to genuine admiration. When the decisive moment came, Emily looked firmly into Buddy's eyes. "Now, friend," she whispered, so that only he could hear, "show them who you really are." And then, to everyone's amazement, Emily placed 6 different objects on the ground: a ball, a small stick, a straw hat, a red handkerchief, a braided rope, and an old sandal. She stepped back a few steps and began to give commands. "Buddy, fetch the ball." The dog ran and brought the ball. Now the hat. Buddy brought the hat, the red handkerchief, and so on, never missing a single object. The audience watched in silence, hypnotized, but the great moment was still to come. "Now, Buddy, show them how smart you are," said Emily with a confident smile. "Which is the round object?" Buddy brought the ball. "Which object protects from the sun?" The dog brought the hat. "Which object do we wear around the neck?" Buddy brought the red handkerchief. The crowd exploded in spontaneous applause. They had never seen a dog understand such abstract concepts. Even Colonel Murphy seemed impressed, thoughtfully scratching his chin. For the grand finale, Emily finished with a trick they had practiced for weeks. She lay down on the ground, pretending to be injured, and Buddy immediately started barking, running in circles as if asking for help. Then he grabbed the red handkerchief with his teeth and placed it over Emily's wound before lying down beside her, as if protecting her. When Emily got up, the ovation was deafening. People were applauding standing up, some even with tears in their eyes, touched by the demonstration of intelligence and loyalty. 10 points for Emily and Buddy, announced the mayor with a broad smile. A truly extraordinary demonstration. As she left the enclosure with Buddy happily skipping by her side, Emily was surrounded by people wanting to congratulate her and pet the dog. Sarah hugged her tightly, her eyes moist with pride. "I knew you would do it, my child," she whispered in Emily's ear. "You two are really special." The competition continued with other participants, but none managed to surpass Buddy's impressive presentation. When everyone had finished, there was a brief meeting among the judges to define the winner, although for most of those present, there were already no doubts. "In third place," announced Mrs. Johnson, "Duke Colonel Murphy's German Shepherd." There was polite applause. The colonel, clearly disappointed with the placement, forced a smile while receiving a small medal. In second place, Rex, the Labrador from the Mendoza family. More applause, and the dentist's son received his medal with a genuine smile, apparently satisfied with the result. And in first place, for a presentation that will remain in the memory of Heartland Springs for a long time, continued Mrs. Johnson with a special gleam in her eyes, Buddy, the miracle of the market, and his young trainer, Emily. The square exploded in applause and shouts of joy. Emily, hardly believing what she was hearing, was practically pushed by Sarah to the platform. The mayor handed her a simple trophy made of carved wood and an envelope. "Congratulations, girl," he said, genuinely moved. "The cash prize is $200. Well deserved." $200. It was more money than Emily had ever seen in her life. She could help Sarah with household expenses, buy new school supplies, quality food for Buddy. As she turned to thank the audience, Emily felt her smile freeze. There at the back of the crowd, distant enough not to be noticed by most but close enough for her to recognize him, was Wade. His eyes, cold as Heartland during the rare frosts, fixed on her with a disturbing intensity. And then, as if to make it clear that he saw her, he slightly raised his hat in a silent greeting before turning his back and disappearing into the celebrating crowd. Emily and Buddy's victory at the Harvest Festival spread by word of mouth through Heartland Springs and beyond. Within a few days, people from neighboring towns began to appear, wanting to meet the miraculous dog, as some called him. Each had a different request. They wanted Buddy to meet their sick children, bless their homes, or simply to be able to touch him, as if his miracle of recovery could somehow be transmitted by contact. Emily, however, couldn't fully enjoy the sudden fame. The image of Wade in the crowd wouldn't leave her head, pursuing her even in her dreams. She began to keep Buddy always close by, worried about what the man might do. "Don't you think you're overreacting, Emily?" asked Sarah, seeing her daughter lock all the doors and windows before going to bed, something they never did before. "Wade is a difficult man, but I don't think he would do anything against a child." "It's not myself I'm afraid for, Mom," replied Emily, checking once more if the kitchen window was well closed. "It's Buddy. You saw how he looked at us at the festival. He wants Buddy back, and now more than ever, after everyone saw how special he is." Sarah sighed, recognizing that her daughter might be right. In recent days, she herself had noticed a shadowy figure lurking around the house, always keeping a distance, but unmistakably present. "Maybe we should talk to Sheriff Silver," she suggested. Emily made a face. Sheriff Silver was known for his rigid stance regarding problems he considered minor. "He'll say it's just a dog, Mum, that he has more important things to worry about." The subject was temporarily interrupted by knocks on the door. It was Mr. Thompson coming for a visit. "I came to see how the champion is doing," he said, smiling, handing a package to Emily. "I brought a special bone for him to celebrate." While watching Buddy happily gnaw on his present, the pharmacist noticed Emily's worried expression. "Any problem, girl?" he asked gently. Emily hesitated, but ended up telling him her concerns about Wade. Mr. Thompson listened attentively, his face gradually assuming a serious expression. "Wade is not a man to easily give up when he wants something," he commented thoughtfully. And after the competition, Buddy's value must have risen a lot in his eyes, especially if what they say is true. "What do they say?" asked Emily, feeling a knot in her stomach. Mr. Thompson hesitated, as if pondering whether or not he should continue. Finally, he lowered his voice. "They say Wade has a buyer for Buddy, a rich man from São Paulo, Brazil who collects rare dogs and who would pay a fortune for a dog so intelligent." The news fell like a stone on Emily's heart. It wasn't just Wade's wounded pride that threatened her, but also greed. After Mr. Thompson left, Emily stayed awake until late, thinking about what to do. The prize of $200, which before had seemed like a fortune, now meant nothing compared to the fear of losing Buddy. The next morning, after a night of poor sleep, Emily decided that she couldn't just wait for something to happen. She convinced Sarah to let her go to the sheriff's office to talk to Sheriff Silver. As expected, the man listened to her story with a condescending smile. "Look, girl, I understand your concern, but I can't do anything based just on suspicions. Wade hasn't made any direct threat, has he? And technically, if he proves the dog was his before—" "But he abandoned Buddy," protested Emily, feeling tears burning in her eyes. "He was dying when I found him." The sheriff shrugged. "That's word against word. The law isn't very clear when it comes to abandoned animals. The best I can do is talk to Wade, advise him to leave you alone." Emily left the sheriff's office with a feeling of defeat. On the way home, she decided to stop by the market to buy some groceries that Sarah had asked for. That's when she noticed two men talking in low voices near the grain stall. One of them was Wade. The other, a stranger in a suit, was clearly not from the region. Hiding behind a stall, Emily tried to hear the conversation. "Guaranteed that." "The dog can do all that?" the man in the suit was asking. "You saw for yourself at the competition?" replied Wade. "I've never seen a smarter animal, worth every cent of what we're asking. My client will be satisfied. When can I see the animal up close?" Wade twisted his lips in an unpleasant smile. "Very soon. I have everything planned." Emily's blood froze. Wade had a plan to get Buddy. Completely forgetting about the groceries, she ran back home, her heart beating so hard it seemed to want to jump out of her mouth. When she arrived, she found Sarah hanging clothes on the line in the backyard. Buddy wasn't in sight. "Mom, where's Buddy?" she asked, out of breath. Sarah looked up, surprised by her daughter's agitation. "He's inside, sleeping under the table as always." "What happened, Emily? You're as white as a sheet." Emily ran inside, relieved to find Buddy exactly where her mother had said. The dog raised his head when he saw her, wagging his tail lazily. During lunch, Emily told Sarah what she had heard at the market. Her mother's expression grew increasingly serious. "This is very serious, sweetie. We need to be careful." "I think we should go spend a few days at Aunt Connie's house in White Rock," suggested Emily, "until things calm down." Sarah considered. So the idea. Her sister Connie lived in a town about 2 hours away. Maybe it was a good idea to get away for a while. "I'll call her today," she decided. The next morning, Emily woke up early to help with the preparations for the trip. The bus to White Rock would leave at 10 a.m., and they needed to be at the bus station in advance. "I'm going to take a quick walk with Buddy before we go, Mom," Emily announced, attaching the leash to the dog's neck. "He needs to do his business." "Don't. Be long and don't go far," Sarah recommended. Emily took Buddy to a small vacant lot near the house where the dog usually did his business. She was distracted, thinking about the trip, when she noticed that Buddy had begun to growl. His ears perked up. "What is it, boy?" she asked, looking around. That's when she saw Wade emerging from behind a tree, accompanied by two men she had never seen before. "Finally alone with the dog, huh, girl?" said Wade with a sinister smile. "Looks like today is my lucky day." Emily's heart raced. Instinctively, she pulled Buddy closer to herself, while her eyes desperately searched for an escape route. "No use thinking about running, girl," said Wade, as if reading her thoughts. "No one will hear your screams here." The two men beside Wade took a step forward. One of them, of rough appearance with a scar on his face, held what appeared to be a net. The other, younger and more hesitant, carried a transport box for animals. "Please, leave me alone," begged Emily, her voice trembling. "Buddy is mine. I took care of him. I saved him." "Saved?" interrupted Wade with a harsh laugh. "You don't know anything, foolish girl. This dog is worth a fortune. Always was. And that's why he's coming back with me today." Buddy continued to growl. The hairs on his neck completely bristled. He positioned himself protectively in front of Emily, as if he perfectly understood the danger. "Why is he acting like this with you, if he's your dog?" challenged Emily, finding courage in her desperation. "A dog recognizes his true owner." Something changed in Wade's face, a flash of uncertainty perhaps, but it was quickly replaced by an expression of cruelty. "Enough talk. Get the dog," he ordered his accomplices. The man with the scar advanced, the net ready. But before he could get close enough, Buddy jumped toward him, barking fiercely. The man backed away, surprised by the animal's sudden aggressiveness. "It's just a skinny dog," shouted Wade, irritated. "Just grab that damn net and catch him." Amid the chaos, Emily heard a sound that made her heart leap with hope. The unmistakable noise of Mr. Thompson's pickup truck engine. The pharmacist had promised to come by to take them to the bus station, and he was arriving earlier than expected. "Help!" she shouted with all the strength of her lungs. "Mr. Thompson, help!" Wade cursed under his breath. "Quick, idiots, before anyone else shows up!" The younger man hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Wade, it's just a child. Maybe we should—" "Shut up and do what I told you," growled Wade, pushing him rudely. At that moment, Buddy attacked again, this time managing to bite the leg of the man with the scar, who screamed in pain. The confusion increased when Mr. Thompson's pickup turned the corner, coming into view of everyone. "What's going on here?" thundered the pharmacist's voice as he jumped from the vehicle. Behind him, Sarah emerged from the passenger seat, her eyes wide with horror at seeing the scene. "Emily," she shouted, running toward her daughter. Wade and his accomplices, realizing they had lost their advantage, began to retreat. Before fleeing, however, Wade pointed a threatening finger at Emily. "This isn't over, girl. You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Neither do you," retorted Mr. Thompson, helping Emily to get up. "I'm going straight to the sheriff's office after this. Attempted kidnapping is a serious crime, Wade." After the men disappeared, Sarah hugged Emily tightly, trembling. As much as her daughter. "My God, my child, if we had arrived a minute later." "Are you all right?" asked Mr. Thompson, concerned. "Is anyone hurt?" Emily shook her head, still clinging to Buddy, who was now licking her hands as if wanting to comfort her. "Wade said that Buddy was always worth a fortune," she stammered, between sobs. "What did he mean by that?" Mr. Thompson exchanged a significant look with Sarah. "Let's talk about this in a safe place," he said, leading them back to the pickup. "This isn't a good place to stay." During the way to the sheriff's office, Emily observed Buddy, who was now lying in her lap, apparently exhausted by the confrontation. What was it about this dog that awakened so much greed in Wade? Why was he so determined to get him back? At the sheriff's office, they found Sheriff Silver calmly drinking coffee. His expression changed when he saw the disturbed state of the three. "What happened?" he asked, suddenly alert. Mr. Thompson reported the incident in detail, while Sarah kept a protective arm around Emily's shoulders. "Wade and two thugs tried to take the dog by force, Sheriff," concluded the pharmacist. "If we hadn't arrived in time, who knows what might have happened to the girl?" Sheriff Silver, now visibly disturbed, took notes quickly. "This is serious, very serious. I'll issue an arrest warrant for Wade immediately, but you need to stay in a safe place until we resolve this situation. We can go to my sister's house in White Rock as planned," suggested Sarah. The sheriff agreed. "Good idea. I'll arrange for an officer to accompany you there, just as a precaution." While they waited for the procedures, Mr. Thompson pulled Emily to a more reserved corner of the sheriff's office. His face had a serious expression that she had never seen before. "Emily, there's something you need to know about Buddy," he said, lowering his voice. "Something I suspected but only confirmed recently." Emily looked at Mr. Thompson with wide eyes, feeling the weight of his words. "What about Buddy?" she asked, instinctively caressing the head of the dog who had fallen asleep in her lap. Mr. Thompson looked around, making sure they wouldn't be overheard. Sarah approached, realizing that something important was being discussed. "Remember when you brought him to my pharmacy, right after buying him? I found something strange on his neck, under the skin. I thought it was just a lump, a result of severe malnutrition. But now, after everything that's happened, I'm almost sure what it is." "What is it?" insisted Emily, feeling her heart accelerate. "A microchip," replied Mr. Thompson. "A very advanced identification device, the kind that only very valuable animals usually have." Sarah frowned. "Microchip? Here in the countryside? I've never heard of that in ordinary dogs." "That's exactly why it's so strange," agreed Mr. Thompson. "For these devices are expensive and generally used in purebred animals, for international competitions, or for specialized working dogs." "But Buddy is just a mutt," began Emily before stopping, uncertain. "That's what he seems at first glance," agreed Mr. Thompson. "But have you ever wondered why he learns so quickly? Why he understands such complex commands?" Emily looked at the sleeping dog. She always knew Buddy was special, but attributed this to the emotional bond they had created, to the love she had dedicated to him. "What are you trying to say, Mr. Thompson?" The pharmacist hesitated, as if carefully choosing his words. "A few months ago, I read about a research project at a university in São Paulo, Brazil. Scientists were working with a special lineage of dogs, genetically modified to have enhanced cognitive abilities. It was a controversial study, but promising for the development of service dogs for people with complex disabilities. The idea was that these dogs could understand and respond to much more sophisticated commands than a common dog." "Are you saying Buddy is one of these dogs?" asked Sarah, incredulous. "I'm not absolutely certain," admitted Mr. Thompson. "But the coincidences are many. Buddy's exceptional intelligence, the microchip, Wade's sudden interest after he realized the dog's potential, and now this unknown man willing to pay a fortune." Emily stared fixedly at Buddy, processing the information. Her heart was divided between fascination with the possibility and fear of what it might mean. "But if it's true," she finally said, "then Buddy doesn't belong to Wade. He must have been stolen from the university." Mr. Thompson nodded gravely. "That's what I suspect. Wade isn't the type of man who would have legitimate access to such a valuable animal. He probably stole it or bought it from someone who stole it. And when Buddy got sick, he simply abandoned him, thinking he wouldn't survive. Fate wanted him to end up in the hands of just the one who would save him," commented Sarah, with a loving look at her daughter. At that moment, Sheriff Silver approached, interrupting the conversation. "Everything is ready. An officer will accompany you to White Rock. I've already sent a patrol car to look for Wade, but he seems to have disappeared from town." As they prepared for the trip, Emily couldn't stop thinking about what she had just discovered. If Buddy was really a genetically modified dog, a laboratory animal, did that mean he didn't belong to her? Would she have to return him to the scientists? The journey to White Rock took place in silence, each immersed in their own thoughts. The police officer assigned to accompany them, a friendly young man named Ryan, occasionally tried to make conversation, but soon realized that the family needed space. Aunt Connie received them with open arms in her simple but welcoming house. Upon learning what had happened, she promised they could stay as long as necessary. "Nobody's going to mess with you here," she guaranteed, serving steaming coffee. "I know everyone in this town. If this Wade shows up, he'll have to deal with the entire town." In the days that followed, Emily tried to resume a normal routine with Buddy. They walked together through the small town, where people soon got used to the presence of the girl and her intelligent dog. Some even asked for demonstrations of the tricks Buddy knew how to do, and Emily occasionally agreed, although always with an eye alert for strangers. On a sunny afternoon, a week after their arrival in White Rock, Emily was playing with Buddy in her aunt's yard when she heard the phone ring inside the house. Minutes later, Aunt Connie came to call her with a worried expression. "It's your mother on the phone, Emily," She says it's important." With a growing feeling of apprehension, Emily entered the house and picked up the phone. "Mom? Did something happen?" "Emily, dear," Sarah's voice sounded tense on the other end of the line. "Mr. Thompson just called me. Wade was arrested last night." "That's great," exclaimed Emily, feeling an enormous relief. "Yes, but there's more." The police found documents on his phone. It seems Mr. Thompson was right. Buddy really is a laboratory dog from a project called Project Morpheus. And the worst part, those responsible for the project have already been notified. They're coming here to recover the dog. The world seemed to slow down around Emily. The idea of losing Buddy was unbearable. "No," she protested, feeling tears spring up. "They can't take Buddy. He's mine, Mom. I saved his life." "I know, my child, I know," Sarah's voice faltered with emotion. "But they have documents, proof of ownership. Legally, Buddy belongs to the laboratory." "But what about everything Wade did? He stole Buddy first." "Yes, and he'll answer for that. But that doesn't change the fact that Buddy has legal owners and they want him back." Emily felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Buddy, sensing her distress, approached and rested his head on her knee, looking at her, with those intelligent and loving eyes that had won her heart since the first day. When do they arrive?" she asked between sobs. "Tomorrow morning. I'm coming there right now to be with you. Sheriff Silver and Mr. Thompson are coming with me." After hanging up the phone, Emily knelt beside Buddy, hugging him with all her strength, as if she could thus prevent them from taking him. The dog, sensing her sadness, licked her tears, trying to comfort her as he always did. "I won't let them take you," she whispered in the dog's ear. "You're not a laboratory experiment. You're my friend, my companion." That night, Emily could hardly sleep. Lying in bed with Buddy curled up at her feet, she thought about all the options she had. Could she run away with him? Where would they go? How would they survive? And even if they managed to escape, for how long could they stay hidden? When the sun began to rise, tinting the sky with orange hues, Emily had already made a decision. She wouldn't run away. She would face the scientists. Face and fight for the right to keep Buddy the only way an 11-year-old girl could, with truth and heart. The morning arrived with a mixture of sun and clouds, as if the sky itself reflected Emily's conflicting feelings. Sarah had arrived the previous night, along with Mr. Thompson and Sheriff Silver. They spent hours talking, trying to prepare her for what was to come, but nothing could really alleviate the pain she felt. "The scientist will arrive around 10 o'clock, informed Sheriff Silver during breakfast, which Emily barely touched. They seem to be reasonable people, at least on the phone. "What do you mean reasonable?" questioned Emily with bitterness in her voice. "They're coming to take Buddy away from me. What part of that is reasonable?" Sarah placed her hand over her daughter's. "Emily, I know it's difficult, but we have to understand that—" "No, Mom," interrupted the girl, withdrawing her hand. "No one understands. No one saw the state Buddy was in when I found him. No one spent sleepless nights caring for him, praying for him to survive. He's not a laboratory thing. He's part of our family now." The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. Even Buddy, lying beside Emily's chair, seemed to feel the tension, his eyes moving from one face to another, as if trying to understand what was happening. At 10 o'clock sharp, a white van with the logo of the University of São Paulo parked in front of Aunt Connie's house. Emily watched through the window, her heart beating so hard it seemed it would jump out of her throat. 3 people got out of the vehicle, 2 women and a man, all wearing white lab coats over casual clothes, as if they had come directly from the laboratory. "It's them," announced Sheriff Silver, heading to the door. "I'll receive them." Emily remained in the living room, clinging to Buddy as if her life depended on it. Sarah sat beside her, a protective arm around her daughter's shoulders. When the scientists entered, Emily was surprised by their appearances. She expected cold and intimidating people, but what she saw were tired and concerned faces. The woman, who seemed to lead the group, had grey hair tied in a messy bun and gentle eyes behind thick-framed glasses. "Good morning," she said, with a surprisingly soft voice. "I am Dr. Helen Fields, coordinator of Project Morpheus. These are my colleagues, Dr. Camilla Reeves and Dr. Lucas Martin." Mr. Thompson stepped forward, informally assuming the role of intermediary. "Welcome. I believe Sheriff Silver has already explained the situation." Dr. Fields nodded, her eyes fixed on Buddy, who was shrinking beside Emily. "Yes, he told us everything. And I must say we are, well, I think shocked would be the right word. We never imagined that Brutus, or Buddy as you call him, had gone through so much in such a short time." "His name isn't Brutus," affirmed Emily, her voice trembling with emotion. "His name is Buddy." The scientist smiled slightly. "It's a beautiful name, certainly. More appropriate than the code name we used in the laboratory." Slowly she approached and knelt at a respectful distance from Emily and Buddy. "May I?" she asked, extending her hand toward the dog. Emily hesitated, but finally nodded. Dr. Fields extended her hand to Buddy, who cautiously sniffed it before allowing her to pet him. "Surprising," murmured the scientist. "He seems in excellent health. When we received the news that he had been found, honestly, we didn't expect him to have survived, considering the circumstances of his disappearance." "He almost didn't survive," said Emily, finding courage to speak. "He was dying when I bought him at the market. I spent weeks caring for him day and night." Dr. Fields looked at her with an expression that mixed admiration and sadness. "And we are eternally grateful for that, Emily. You saved not only his life, but years of research that could help countless people." "So it's true?" asked Mr. Thompson. "He's a genetically modified dog." Dr. Martin, the man of the team, stepped forward. "Not exactly. Brutus, sorry buddy, is part of a special lineage that has been selectively bred for more than 15 years to develop enhanced cognitive abilities. There was no direct genetic modification, just careful selection of characteristics over generations." "In simple terms," explained Dr. Reeves, "Buddy is one of the smartest dogs in the world. His capacity for comprehension and learning is comparable to that of a young chimpanzee, far beyond what would be expected from an ordinary dog." Emily looked at Buddy with new eyes. She always knew he was special, but never imagined how much. "Was he stolen from the laboratory?" asked Sarah. Dr. Fields' expression darkened. "Yes, about 6 months ago. We thought it was an inside job, someone with access to the animals. Fortunately, all dogs have implanted microchips, which allowed us to track them when found." "And what do you do with them in the laboratory?" asked Emily, fearing the answer. "Training mainly," responded Dr. Fields gently. "We're developing protocols for ultra-specialized service dogs capable of assisting people with complex or multiple disabilities. Imagine a dog that can not only guide a blind person, but also recognize signs of medical emergency, such as an imminent epileptic seizure, and still help with complex domestic tasks." Emily absorbed the information slowly. It didn't sound as terrible as she had imagined, but still, "Do you hurt them?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. Dr. Fields seemed genuinely offended. "Absolutely not. Our dogs are treated with the utmost respect and care. They have recreation areas, socialization with other dogs, and are never subjected to any painful or stressful procedure." A heavy silence fell over the room. The inevitable moment had come. "So you came to get him," said Emily, the tears finally overflowing. "You're going to take him away." Dr. Fields exchanged a look with her colleagues, as if they were having a silent conversation. Finally, she sighed deeply. "Actually, Emily, we came to assess the situation. And after seeing the bond between you two, and considering everything you did for him, well, we're willing to consider an alternative." Emily raised her eyes, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "Alternative?" Dr. Fields smiled. "Buddy is without a doubt an extraordinary dog, but it's also evident that he has found an extraordinary home with you. Our mission is to ensure the well-being of these special animals and develop their potential to help people. It seems you're already doing that in your own way." "What Dr. Fields is proposing," intervened Dr. Martin, "is a shared custody arrangement, so to speak. Buddy would remain with you as his primary guardian, but would regularly participate in training and evaluation sessions at our center, which we could establish right here in the region." Emily blinked, confused. You would let Buddy stay with me?" "Under certain conditions," explained Dr. Reeves. "We would need your permission to monitor his development, conduct periodic examinations, and use the data in our research. We would also like you to participate in a training program so you could help develop his skills even further. In addition, added Dr. Fields with a broader smile, we would like to offer something in exchange for your collaboration. Something like what? Asked Sarah, suspicious. A scholarship for Emily to start with, replied the scientist. Her talent with Buddy demonstrates remarkable intuition and sensitivity. We would like to nurture that talent, and also financial compensation for the care and maintenance of such a valuable animal. This could help with family expenses. Emily could hardly believe what she was hearing. Not only could she keep Buddy, but she would also have the opportunity to study, to help her mother financially. And what about Wade? Asked Sheriff Silver, who until then had been observing everything in silence. He will face legal consequences for stealing university property, replied Dr. Fields firmly, and for endangering the life of a valuable animal, not to mention the attempted kidnapping. Sarah approached her daughter. What do you think, Emily? The decision is yours. Emily looked at Buddy, who was staring at her with those intelligent eyes that seemed to see into her soul. She knew it wasn't just a choice about having a dog or not. It was about growing up, about taking on responsibilities, about understanding that sometimes the best solutions come from compromises. I accept, she finally said, with a trembling but decided voice. But with one condition. His name remains Buddy, no Brutus or any other laboratory name. Dr. Fields laughed, a surprisingly youthful sound that completely transformed her tired face. Deal. Buddy will be entered in all the official records of the project. In the months that followed, life in Heartland Springs changed dramatically for Emily and her family. The university kept its promise, establishing a small research and training center nearby, which brought jobs and a new dynamic to the small town. Emily began attending a better school in the neighboring town, where her talent for science flourished, inspired by contact with the researchers. Sarah got a job at the training center, taking care of the feeding and welfare of the dogs, a less exhausting and better paid job than that of a laundress. As for Buddy, he became a local celebrity. People came from far away to see the wise dog, as he was affectionately called. His training advanced even further, and soon he was helping in demonstrations about how specially trained dogs could assist people with disabilities. Wade was tried and convicted, not only for the theft of animals from the university, but also for his attempt to kidnap Buddy and threaten Emily. Justice, although slow, had finally caught up with the man who had brought so much fear and insecurity to the girl's life. On a Sunday afternoon, almost a year after the events that changed their lives, Emily and Buddy were resting under the shade of a tree in their yard, a new, more spacious and comfortable house which they had been able to buy thanks to the support of the university. Sarah approached, bringing a tray with fresh lemonade. "What are you thinking about, my child?" she asked, noticing Emily's thoughtful, "Look, I was thinking about how everything changed," replied the girl, distractedly caressing Buddy's ears, who was dozing with his head in her lap. "And how sometimes the most important things in our lives begin in the most unexpected moments." Sarah smiled, sitting beside her daughter. "Like when a stubborn girl decides to spend all her savings to buy a dying dog." Emily laughed. "Exactly." "You know what impresses me most," continued Sarah, looking fondly at Buddy. "How you never doubted, not for a second, that he would survive, even when everyone said it was impossible. I just did what anyone would do, Mom. I saw someone who needed help and I helped. No, my child, you did much more than that. You saw life where others only saw suffering. You saw hope where others only saw hopelessness. And that's why Buddy is here today. Not just because of the medicine or the food, but because you gave him a reason to fight." Buddy opened his eyes at that moment, as if he had heard his name, and looked at Emily with that almost human expression of understanding and affection. He raised his head and gently licked the girl's hand, in a gesture that said more than 1,000 words. Heartland remained there with its dry land and its merciless sun. Life was still difficult for many, but for Emily, Sarah, and Buddy, a new beginning had blossomed in the arid soil of adversity, a beginning built on the unshakable foundations of compassion, courage, and unconditional love. As the sun began to set on the horizon, tinting the sky with orange hues, Emily made a silent promise to herself. She would never stop believing in the power of a small act of kindness to transform lives. After all, that's how her own story of transformation began, with a simple look of recognition between a lonely girl and an abandoned dog in a forgotten corner of a country market. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from.